I wrote about this these steps by Aldous Huxley in my book many years ago. And then I wrote about the Frankfurt School and their desire to destroy masculinity in America many years ago. And then out comes this report this week by the American Psychological Association making masculinity a bad thing. I'm thinking, well, their dreams are coming true. But then I read how they're talking about we don't want to have guys that are masculine and leaders. Really what they're saying is we don't want any leaders. We don't want any masculine leaders. And I thought, wait a minute, where have I heard that before? And I went back to a report that I read and that I talk about actually in this movie, Sabotage, a report from the 1950s by a William E. Mayer. William E. Mayer was in our military, in our Air Force, and our government didn't know what to do because during the Korean War, our POWs were coming home, those that did. They were coming home and they had converted to communism or they had turned on America. Maybe they hadn't converted to communism, but they had no desire to defend America. They had no desire to defend a constitutional republic. They had no desire to put up a defense, even while being POWs, against the communist attempts at brainwashing. And they had no desire to escape. And one of their first duties was to learn how to escape and to do that. But they wouldn't. And for the first time in military history, we had some of our guys actually pull the covers over their head and they'd be dead within a few days. They called it give-up-itis. Others, again, were writing home letters to their family about the virtues of communism or socialism or trash-talking America. And our military couldn't figure out what had happened. So our government did a study in the 1950s. William E. Mayer headed this study up. And William E. Mayer found out that without any drugs and without torture, they were able to convince many of the American POWs to turn against America or to give up, to not fight back. And why? Because they had not learned enough about America and what America means and stands for and our Constitution and our way and our form of government. They had no clue. That means in the 1940s, our educational system was in such bad shape. By the 1950s, these POWs didn't have enough to stand up to the information operation, the brainwashing. And that's exactly what the Reese Committee found in the 1940s and 50s in their studies at the congressional level, that globalist, socialist foundations were infiltrating the writing of our textbooks in America, and even in the 30s to create the textbooks in the 40s that the young men would be influenced by who were in the 50s, were in the Korean War. They didn't know about American ideas. Yeah. So you think it was bad then? What about now? And you know what William E. Mayer said? One of the first things that the communists would do when they would bring the POWs into the camp, one of the first things they would do, he writes, is they would figure out who the leaders were, who the revolutionaries were, who the reactionaries were, and they would get rid of them. They would move them off to reactionary camps. You know what percentage of the population of the POWs that was? 5%. All they had to do was get rid of 5% of the population of the POWs that they identified as the leaders. The masculine, conviction, aggressive defense of their positions and their worldview. They had to find them, mark them, the masculine leaders. Mark them, find them, move them out to reactionary camps away from the other 95%. Why? Well, because Aldous Huxley said round pegs don't fit in square holes and tend to have dangerous thoughts about the social system and infect others with their discontent. So I'm noticing that all of this tonight we're talking about, Aldous Huxley, the 6 steps for global transformation for children, masculinity now creates psychological problems. The United Nations Global Education Plan, flooding our nation to destroy our culture, our way of life, our history, our heritage. It's all connected. Most people see this as bits and pieces. They don't see it as a cohesive plan that is well thought out and has even been tested by using some of our POWs during the Korean War as basically rats to say, let's see if this social experiment will work. And as I read these reports off on the side of my page on Christmas Eve, I sat in front of my fireplace with my dog at my feet, making notes in the margins. And from the 1956 speech by William E. Mayer of how the communists turned our young men against America, I can write in the margins and tell you how that's happening in America today. And the bottom line is this: Americans are involved in being brainwashed and they don't even know it.